Alright, so let's work on detailing out the floor plan. So I have my first floor plan view open, and obviously you guys can see my driveway, my property line, but on a floor plan view I really don't need to see these. So I have two choices. I could actually crop the view so that I only see my floor plan, or I can just simply select those and hide them in my view. But I'm also probably going to crop it, so I'm going to do that. Because if I don't crop it, this whole thing's going to try to come in on my sheet. Oop. I'm losing my elevation mark. So it's good that you guys see me like make these little basic mistakes and troubleshoot. So I can make my view window much tighter. And let's get in here and start detailing out the floor plan. So let's start off with the dimensions first. I find that dimensions are probably one of the more important bit of information in a floor plan. I like my grid lines to be outside of the dimensions, so I'm going to pull this out a little bit more. And the way how I like to dimension and the way how I like to have my guys dimension in my studio is the first dimension should be your overall, your total width of your property. So this is about 25 feet 5 inches. And then my second layer of dimension line would be kind of the major zones or spaces. So I'm going to take this dimension again, and then this will be like the foyer zone. I mean, you can dimension this, and actually I will in this case. And again, dimensioning, as you get more experience with dimensioning, you will actually kind of develop your own unique way of dimensioning things. And yeah, I wouldn't say it's a style, but you'll figure out a good strategy so that your drawing doesn't look so crazy. And then the third layer of dimensioning is all the open spaces. So there's a couple of conventions when it comes to doors and windows. The proper convention would be to go to the center line, like this. And then I'm not going to jump like here because I have a dimension line here. So I'm going to finish out that dimension here. I don't need this obviously, but I will place it just because this is going to be a long dimension, and so that'll be that, right? So if I look at this string, actually on this one, my initial guess was right. I'd rather just make this one long dimension string. So I could put my mouse over here and hit tab, which will allow me to just select that. I'll delete that line, and I'll move that line there. So these two add up to that, and these two add up to that, and these three add up to that, right? So there's a very logical sequence there. Now in terms of dimensioning the openings, the reason why this is a preferred method is that even though I spec out let's say a 3-foot door, the actual opening from frame to frame has to be larger than 3 feet so that the door can slip right in. But there's also many variables on how wide that opening would be depending on the door manufacturer and things like that. And as an architectural team, it's virtually impossible to dimension it to every possible door that's out there. So the better convention is to say, hey, contractor, I want a 3-foot door. Whatever 3-foot door, whether the client wants this type of door, that type of door, I need it 3 feet. So if the door manufacturer makes that door 3 feet and maybe another 2 more inches wide, it is their job to figure it out and place a piece of wood right here and place another piece of wood right here and still leave plenty of room for this door to slip in. So that is called a rough opening. And so we never want to determine what that rough opening is going to be. The intent of this is to just really locate where the door and window should be. Therefore, if you dimension it to the center line, we say, hey, the door's going to be here, and you just have to make it wider each side, however width you need to make that work, right? So we're leaving that work and that math to the contractor, and rightfully so. So I'm looking at all these 3 string of dimensions. In general, from the wall to this dimension line, you want about this much space, because later on you might want to put text, and you certainly don't want it to be like this tight, where if you do it this tight, and if I try to call things out like wall, yeah, oops. And if I do that, this is not acceptable, right? It just starts to get crazy, all of that, right? So you don't want to do that. So you definitely want to leave some room from the first string. I would say in scale about this is fine. Then that way, if you're trying to call something out, you could bring it right in here, right inside, and it looks all neat. So that's definitely what you want to do. And this is the preferred method of dimensioning openings. But you know, again, every office has their own, and so you go by that. So let's dimension this side here, and I'm going to dimension these openings slightly differently, and you'll see the various strategy. So again, it'll be your overall dimension that's going to guide you first, and then after that, major room. You could pick this side of the wall or that side of the wall. Either side is fine, or you could do center line, and that would be totally acceptable also. But I'm going to do one side of the wall in this case, and then I'm going to do the outside of the wall because that's an exterior wall, and then there. So that's my second line of dimensions. Now I've got to dimension all the openings. So again, I'm going to come here. Remember we did the center line? In this case, I'm going to take one edge, but you do not want to dimension here. I'm going to dimension it, and I'm going to tell you why. And also another thing, if you dimension this line to this side of the wall, then do not dimension to this side of the wall, because you can see how that's looking kind of crazy, right? And the reason why you don't want to dimension the door, although we want a 6-foot door, you never want to give the contractor that dimension, because what you're actually technically telling the contractor is put a piece of wood here, 3 foot 3.5 inches away, and then go 6 feet and put another piece of wood there. And now if they were to follow this dimension at 6 feet and they buy a 6-foot door, they're not going to be able to slip it in. And then whose fault is that going to be? It's going to be your fault because you told the contractor, I need that to be 6 feet apart. So hopefully you guys understand that. So you do not want to dimension like this. The proper way to dimension it would be to dimension here. You dimension this one side. Do not dimension this side, and you want to dimension that. So that would be acceptable. So what happens in this scenario, unlike this scenario where it's to the center line, you're telling the contractor, give me a piece of wood right here, 3 foot 3.5 inches away, and then the next piece of wood, you have to figure that out. You know that I want a 6-foot door, so if you need to put this thing somewhere out here to make it work, that would be their job as professional builder. And that's a very normal convention. So hopefully you understood that, and this is probably a good time for you to come here and don't do 3 foot 3.5. Contractors will go crazy. Just kind of even it out as your dimension lines are looking pretty, fractional. I mean, sometimes you can't help it, but for the most part, you want to try to make it reasonable. So here, actually, this is probably 3 different windows. So I'm probably going to dimension it to this side. Actually, you know what? I think they're going to order this window all in one piece. So I'll just dimension it to one opening. The other opening I'm going to leave loose so that the contractor can figure that part out, and then dimension it to the same wall. And then there's no reason for me dimensioning here unless there was a window here, right? And then let's just kind of adjust this thing so that it's not some crazy half dimension. So again, you see I left plenty of room between the third layer of dimension line and the wall. Probably a little bit too much room, but this is a pretty small plan, so I should have plenty of space on my sheet. While we're here, let's just go ahead and put in our section view. And I think on the drawing we're cutting it somewhere here. I think I'm going to cut it through this window, so I'll put it here like that. And then when you draw sections, when you draw architectural sections, you don't really want to see all this information. You're just really wanting to show structure and what's happening here. So I like to bring this view range down, as tight as possible, kind of like that, right? And then that's perfect. If I needed space on my sheet, I could pull this a little bit closer, but obviously you don't want to do that where things are looking messy and they're crossing over one another. So I think that would be pretty reasonable. And then that way I can put notes here and call things out. So that's kind of dimensioning 101. Hopefully you guys can carry these convention and kind of carry it around on the first level and on the second level. With the section symbol, I like to actually cut it. There's a little cut line there. And then pull these line across so that it doesn't look like a line that's going through the floor. And then we'll talk about section and coming demos. This, is kind of sticking out a little bit. It kind of looks weird. So I'm probably going to kind of bury it like that. To me that's acceptable because I think they can visualize that line going all the way through. Same thing with this guy here, because we're really trying to identify this. There's nothing really particularly going on here. So I'll move it, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then let's make these a little bit tighter. Just kind of doing housekeeping to keep things neat and tidy. All right, so now let's tag the windows and doors. So if you guys go to annotate, we're going to say tag. So Revit knows that when you click on a window, it's a window. So it's giving me a tag. And it's just kind of a number that was assigned. So that's a door. So it knows it's a door. So it's giving me a different door tag, as you notice. And there's a quicker way to tag, but you can figure that out. I'm just going to go the old school way. Okay, so the other windows were tagged. It makes sense. So this is a door number 7. So if I click on this door, you can see door number 7. If that's an entry door, I can make that door number 1 if I like, as long as there's no other door number 1, and there isn't. So that's fine. Again, housekeeping. I don't like dimension lines crossing things if I don't have to, so I'll pull that back a little bit. They can kind of tell that I'm pointing to the center of the door. Same thing here. Pull that back. Line up all these tags so it's not overlapping. The tag and the number 6 can get hidden, so I'm just going to pull it back. So you're just trying to make it look so that it's not so convoluted and confusing. You just want to be clear. It's all about just communicating what you're trying to do. I think I have some door tags here. So all doors and all windows gets a tag, so that's that. Let's add a room tag so that we can define each of the rooms. So a room tag would be, I'm always on a shortcut key. So here's the room tag under the annotate, RT. Oops, sorry, that wasn't it. That's for something different. You want to go to the architecture. The shortcut key is RM, and this is what you want. You want to define a room, and it'll also create a tag at the same time. So if I do this, you can see Revit is kind of going through all the walls that it can't go through and is tagging that room. And then that's called room 1, which now you can click here, slow click, and then say MBR for master. And you can see that it's just staying along inside of the walls. And then you can continue and continue to tag the bathroom. You can even tag the laundry room. I try not to tag closets, but you can. It just gets really small, but it's pretty obvious that it's a closet. Or I might just put a text that says closet on it. Or you might want to define the room if you're trying to get square footage. So I'll leave that up to you guys. Over here it's a little tricky, right? Because it's tagging the whole room, including the stairway and the kitchen. So go ahead and leave that, and you can tell whenever you click on this box, it's showing you what it considers to be this room. And let's just say it's living. But you want to be able to divide this. So the only way to divide it is to put a wall, but we don't want a wall. So you can do a room separator, and you just draw a line anywhere really, but I'm going to draw it from here to here like this. And that line will separate this living room. If you notice now, if I select that, right? It doesn't go in here, right? It's like a boundary. So I can actually probably put another room separator here. So that'll be stairs. And then I'll go RM for room. And then that'll be my kitchen. So these lines, you may not want to see them. You just have to hide them. Again, the shortcut key is element hide. So then now you have your kitchen, living, bath, laundry. So now you have all your room tags. All right, so now let's check if you have smoke detectors here. I don't think Revit really ships with a good smoke detector, and I don't know if our smoke detector family is loaded here, but let's see. No, it is not. So let's take a look at Revit default smoke detector, and maybe we'll use it or maybe not. So we'll go to Insert, Load Family, well, possibly, or Fire Protection. Let's try that first. So these are more industrial. It's crazy. Just gotta try to understand how Revit organized them. So there's really no smoke detectors. Give me a sec. Alright, so Revit out of the box, they don't really have a good smoke detector. And also you guys have to understand Revit was really designed for like large architectural firms that are doing huge buildings. So, unfortunately they're kind of neglecting the smaller architects that actually do a lot of residential practice. But no worries, I actually created my own smoke detector family. You'll find it in your assets folder in the families. I'm just going to drag it in because I have it open on my second screen. There you go. Oh, by the way, it's here, MA smoke detector. I know I dragged it in. Maybe I have to go to component. Alright, why am I having so much trouble here? It should be in here now. Huh, that's weird. So if it's not coming in, no worries. Just open up the family and then load it onto the project, which will force load. Oh, it's in here. Wow. Okay. Sorry, guys, but you get to see me make plenty of mistakes here. Okay. Well, good. You guys would have been confused. So, if you guys, let me see. Oh, gosh, it's right here. And I forget. When I name my stuff, I always put a hyphen so that it always shows up because I don't want the M to be buried down here. So that's my little trick, and I forgot that's what I've done. So anyway, you come in here and then you drag the smoke detector, and you need a smoke detector in each room, and this is the only room I have. And then you need a smoke detector right outside the room in the hallway, but you don't want to put it here because you have the kitchen. So I think the plan checker allowed us to kind of get it as far away as possible from the kitchen. So I think that's where we have it, and we were able to get a permit based on that. But the smoke detector should be near a doorway and kind of inside the room. Alright, so now we have the smoke detector. Just another code issue is when you have a door going to the outside, you need a landing. And because the door is swinging in this case, our landing can be smaller. But in general, it's good to have a landing that's at least 3 feet in the direction of travel. So this way right here. So I just want to point that out to you guys from a code compliance standpoint. And I think, obviously you guys are going to fill this out, but I think I covered a lot of the things that I wanted to cover on the floor plan. So actually in bathrooms too, there's a minimum distance that they want. And if you guys are using this family, this is something that was custom created by us. So these inside blue lines that you see here are minimum clearances that you need against any kind of obstruction. So in this case, I have plenty of room, so I'm going to give myself plenty of knee room. And then these are like minimum. So if I had this wall inside this line, it would be not code compliant. So I know that I'm good. And sometimes the plan checkers, believe it or not, they actually want to verify and they want you to put a dimension like this, and so it's fine. If that's too crazy, I'm going to just make it 2'4". But I think it's, you only need like 18 inches or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but you can Google it, clearance in front of the toilet. And on the side, I believe minimum is 15 or 16, and then I like 18. So this is 16 and that's 18. And believe it or not, they actually want, sometimes a plan checker will demand that we put a dimension line down there so that the contractor has no excuse in terms of placement. Call outs Callouts and things like that, of course, you should know by now, is annotate, text, arrow, both, click, 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 egress door, egress, oops. So again, if these dimension lines were closer, you'd have to cross the lines and it gets really crazy. This is a lot more cleaner method of doing it. This actually is driving me nuts. I'm going to move it down like that. So yeah, continue on, fill out all the annotation. I know in the example that I gave you, you see electrical lights and circuits. For this project, I like to just not do those. I think we're going to cover it in the next project. For now, I just want to kind of rip through, putting together a generic condoc, and then, we'll go from there. So this demo has gone for about 24 minutes, so I think I'm going to cut it here, and then there'll be part 2. See you guys soon.